Okay, I have two exposures for this scene here. One general exposure for the ambient light in the room, and I have a second shot here coming down here, frame 11, which is a slightly better exposure for the actual screens themselves. What I want to do in this exercise is combine these screens with the ambient light exposure for the wide scene here at the reception. So let's get going. Very simple. We'll move over to the good screens, if you like, zoom in a tad. Using my rectangular marquee tool, going to do a simple, crude and basic selection there around the good screen. I'm going to edit, copy, then move over to the ambient light scene and edit paste. Using the move tool here, I'm going to drag the new screen exposure around, and position it over the background scene. By dropping the opacity in the layers menu down to around about 50 or 60%, it enables me to see through the top layer down to the bottom layer, and it will help me to position the layer correctly. When I have the layer in position, I can return the opacity back up to 100%. And now I'm going to use a layer mask here to remove this excess exposure around the edge. Zooming in a little more, moving across, I'm going to use my polygonal lasso tool, and I'm going to make a quick selection here around the edge of the screen, steering clear of the actual edge of the bright area next to the screen. I'm going to make my selection there within the darker, there's no real detail there in the black of the screen, so it should be easy to blend that between the two exposures. Just to soften up that selection a little bit, I'm going to go to my select menu, modify and feather the edge of that selection just by a little 2 or 3 pixels. So I'll just do 2 pixels. So I have an active selection. When I create a layer mask, which is my next step, the mask will be created in line with the selection that is active. So the layer mask will automatically create itself, the mask element of the layer mask will create itself based on the active selection. Here we go. Quick route to the layer mask is down here in the layers palette, and that's your layer mask icon at the bottom. Click on that once, we get a layer mask come up for the layer, and you can see if I hold down the Alt key and click on the mask, you'll see that the mask is hiding everything else except the selected area in the white area here where the new layer is being revealed. Alt key down again to go back to seeing the full layer. We ought to name this layer, double click on the layer 1 and call this screen right. Okay, turning the layer visibility on and off, you can see that is definitely an improvement, but the screen still has some blemishes in it over here, some highlights showing through, and the black isn't actually too hot at all. So we can just improve that a little bit. I'm going to do a slightly small destructive edit here straight onto the actual layer itself by getting the spot healing tool over there, and I'm just going to scrub through those couple of highlights. That's that job done there. And then I just want to change the tonal range in this screen here a little bit using a curves adjustment. But I want the curves adjustments only affect this layer and not all the layers. To do that, I need to, well, I'll go straight here to the layer menu first of all, and then new adjustment layer and curves. And if I tick here, use previous layer to create clipping mask, this will force the curves adjustment to only apply itself to the immediate layer below the curves adjustment here. You get this clipping mask icon denoted by the downward arrow and the underlining of the layer below. There we go. Now, taking the black point on the left hand side, just sliding it over to the right will force the darkest pixels in that layer to become blacker, and pulling the mid-tone down a little bit might return a little detail there. That looks much nicer. Let's just undo the curve and return it again. Sort of hides all that noise in the dark shadows and makes a pure black, which is absolutely fine for the purposes of this. And zooming out to take a wider look, there we have it. You can see the screen on the right is fixed, and now we can just go through and do exactly the same process again for the screen on the left. That's it.